Thank you so much, Kathleen. Good morning to all. Before I start, I'd like to begin with thanking the World Maritime University, Korean Maritime Institute, Korean Ministry of Fisheries and Ocean for their kind invitation and the organization. In particular, for the logistical arrangements, I'd like to thank Sarah and Kathleen for coordinating this with me. I'm very privileged to be here today. Thank you also to Professor Baumler for the wonderful foundation of today's presentation about safety. I think he made my life much easier. He has already talked about many things that I was planning to talk, but I will try to give you a different angle on the safety of fishing vessels. Hopefully by the end of my presentation you will have a broader overview of not only the Cape Town Agreement but also other instruments of IMO. So I will be covering these 6 topics. I will start with the fishing in numbers because we are all interested in numbers. And then SCCWF Convention and the Code very briefly. Then the CTA itself. I will also mention the voluntary instruments, and I will finish off with the latest developments and future steps. Let's begin with the numbers. I'm very glad that we have matching numbers with Professor Baumler, because usually when I attend fisheries events, we have different numbers about the casualties, but this time around I think I match the same figures. And to be on the safe side, I put both figures in terms of fatalities, as you can see. So we have the data from FAO and ILO indicating that we have 65 million people working in capture and aquaculture. So it is a big, massive population dealing with fisheries in general. And in particularly about the capture fisheries, there are 36 million people working. 36% of the global fish production enters in international trade. And this signifies why we need international instruments. It is estimated that the total number of fishing vessels of all types is 4.1 million. And 64,000 of these are covered by the international regulations that are of 24 meters and above. Unfortunately, the annual fatality rate is unacceptably high. So as Professor has already mentioned, there are 2 different commonly estimated figures, 32,000 and 100,000 plus fishers. Everybody knows about the Titanic disaster. You may be wondering why I put this slide here. This is to make a comparison between the safety of fishers and safety of crew and passengers. So more than 1,500 people unfortunately died in 1912, and this led to the creation of the SOLAS Convention and other international instruments. And if you compare the most conservative number of 32,000 fishers lost every year by FAO. This can be even much higher according to the latest research that was conducted by the Fish Safety Foundation. So that is estimating that 100,000 plus fatalities every year. So we are facing around 21 cases of Titanic every year. So this brings up the question why the lives of the fishers are less important than the lives of the passengers and the crew of commercial ships. And IMO's response to these fatality figures is to provide mandatory and recommendatory instruments. And I will begin with the SCCWF Convention just to complement the full picture of the CTA today. So the SCCWF Convention provides standards of training, certification, and watchkeeping for fishing vessel personnel. It was adopted in 1995 and it came into force in 2012. So in IMO's international regulatory framework, the entry into force dates are usually much later than the adoption date because of the level of acceptance globally. It provides mandatory provisions for the crew of seagoing fishing vessels of 24 meters and above for the deck department, and for the engine department, that is more than 750 kilowatts of propulsion power. And there are certain exemption provisions available for the vessels below 45 meters if the vessels are operating in limited waters defined by the member state itself. As was mentioned, a recent revision work ended up having a new code, STCWF code, that is supplementing the STCWF convention. So it is similarly to the STCW convention and the code. The part A of the STCWF code is mandatory, and part B provides guidance on mandatory basis. By providing the standards for fishing crew on certification, training, and watchkeeping, we have better skilled and trained personnel, leading to fewer injuries and fatalities. It harmonizes the qualifications globally so that it provides mobility for the fishers working for multiple flags, and it provides level playing field for the industry targeting substandard fishing vessels. In Chapter 2, the provisions provide the requirements for certification of skippers, officers, engine officers, and radio operators. It provides also standards for the seagoing service, navigation, training on medical fitness, stability, etc. And in Chapter 3, there are basic safety requirements applicable for all fishing vessel personnel. And it includes personal survival techniques, fire safety, and many others similar to the STCW requirements. And fishing vessels are now subject to port state control inspections as the second layer of safety. And I will move on with the core subject of today's is the Cape Town Agreement. So as you can see, the full title is quite lengthy, so I will not even try to read it out. But I would like to draw your attention to these three different dates: 1977, 93, and 2012. This signifies the journey of this agreement from 1977. So for almost 50 years of journey, ended up having the entry into force next year, hopefully. So it was adopted in 2012. We have 29 member states. It provides mandatory provisions like the STCWF Convention and Code, and it applies to vessels of 24 meters in length and above. It is applicable to exclusive economic zone, common fishing zones, and high seas. So it is applicable to all possible fishing activities and locations. There are some provisions providing gradual implementation from 5 to 10 years for certain chapters, and I will come to that later on. And certain fishing vessel types are excluded, for example, the research and training or fish carriers, because they are considered as cargo ships. They are carrying fish only. The CTA provides design, equipment, and construction standards for the fishing vessels to protect the safety of crew and observers and provide a level playing field for the industry by inspections targeting unscrupulous operators. In its 10 chapters, a wide range of topics are covered, similar to the SOLAS Convention, starting from stability, machinery, life-saving appliances, navigational equipment, emergency procedures. With the agreement, the benefits are quite comprehensive. First of all, of course, the safety of fishing vessels and fishers, and then inspection of fishing vessels by port and flag state control, harmonization of international regulations, and there are also indirect benefits, including the protection of the marine environment, providing transparency in fisheries, suppressing IUU fishing and forced labor activities, and of course, conservation of the ocean resources, because there is a strong correlation between substandard, unsafe fishing vessels and illegal activities that was provided here. After the entry into force, we will have a global safety standard for fishing vessel, and the fishing operations will be conducted more safely, legally, and transparently. There will be also major benefits due to the port state and flag state inspections. Not only the safety of the vessel, but also IUU fishing, living conditions, competencies, and protection of the marine environment. And of course, due to the increased safety level, there will be less search and rescue calls for the accidents happening at sea. This was also highlighted before me. So, as I mentioned, safe and sustainable fisheries sit on 4 major pillars for the large industrial fishing vessels. So, I have already talked about SCCWF. We have the PSMA by FAO. It's in force since 2016, providing IUU fishing related provisions, and it's banning the fishing vessels from using the ports and landing their catches. And ILO's Convention CA 188, it was covered yesterday, as I understand. Unfortunately, I missed this opportunity, but next time, hopefully, I will join. And the only missing pillar is the CTA, again, for large fishing vessels. You may be recalling my initial statement about 3 different dates in the long title of the Cape Town Agreement. The journey started in 1977 with the Torremolinos Convention, but it didn't enter into force due to technical and legal difficulties. And then the 93 Protocol was the second attempt, but again it failed. And finally, the culmination of the safety level was achieved in 2012 by revising some certain provisions. I will come to that later on. So it's been a 50-year journey, but we are happy to see that this is entering into force next year. For the agreement to enter into force, you need minimum 22 member states with 3,600 fishing vessels eligible operating on the high seas. As of today, we have 29 ratifications, very proudly, and the level has been achieved with 3,700 fishing vessels, which is triggering the entry into force next year. And WMU has a major contribution in this achievement, of course, with supporting us the IMO activities and ILO FAO activities like this one in many platforms. And this list is the ratifying states, altogether 29 member states. We are aware of future member states ratifying the agreement next year probably. So there will be many more states similar to other conventions like the SCCWF. You may be wondering what happened since 1993 protocol all the way to the 2012 agreement. So first of all, the entry into force requirements were eased for increasing the acceptance level. The 93 protocol required 14,000 fishing vessels minimum declared by the ratifying member states. But the agreement provides 3,600 only. There are also equivalency provisions introduced between gross tonnage and length, because we know that some member states use length as the basis for measurement and some others use gross tonnage. So with the equivalency provisions, now we have an easy implementation criteria. As I also mentioned, progressive implementation provisions provide the flexibility for implementing certain chapters from 5 to 10 years for existing fishing vessels. As you know, when a new instrument is coming into force, the major concern by the implementing member states is the existing vessels. And the CTA has so much flexibility in that respect. And there are also exemption provisions expanded to include vessels fishing in a common fishing zone or an exclusive economic zone, and I will explain in detail later on the differences between these. And finally, after the 93 protocol, of course, major technical advancements have been reflected in the Cape Town Agreement about the technology, equipment standards. So with respect to LSA, firefighting, radio communications. And still, even after they enter into force, we need to revise the 2012 agreement because it's been more than 15 years since the adoption of the agreement. Almost every year, SOLAS Convention has some updates about the technological advancements, and similarly, we need to do the same for the CTA. I will move on with the general technical features. It applies to mainly new and large industrial fishing vessels. Certain provisions don't apply to vessels below 45 meters. It mirrors the structure of the SOLAS Convention. And when a vessel is constructed before it is put into service, an initial survey is conducted similar to the commercial ships. The certificate is issued, International Fishing Vessel Safety Certificate, for no more than 5 years after the initial survey. And if you are applying exemptions, then an International Fishing Vessel Exemption Certificate is issued to this specific vessel for a certain period. Thanks to the comprehensive technical provisions, the vessels will remain watertight, weathertight, even adverse and extreme weather conditions such as ice. Safe spaces for crew will be maintained by sufficient life-saving appliances, PPE, firefighting equipment, and emergency procedures identified. There will be regular emergency drills covering the crew and the observers on the fishing vessel. And vessels shall be fitted with sufficient radio communications equipment to transmit their distress signals, receive search and rescue information, and other relevant communication. And of course, one of the priority rules is to get the vessel to safely navigate. As I mentioned, the agreement provides port state control inspections on the no more favorable treatment principle. I think you all know, but just in case. So this no more favorable treatment would allow for the foreign flag fishing vessels, regardless of being a part of the vessel's flag, to be inspected. So if you're a member state of the Cape Town Agreement, you can inspect any flag of the fishing vessel. And the certificate can be verified by the port state control officers of the other party. And if there are deficiencies, detainable deficiencies, then the vessel can be detained or sent to a shipyard for repairs. And in this case, the flag state is informed. Similar to the harmonized system of survey and certification under the HSCC guidelines, there are various surveys: initial, renewal, periodical, annual, additional survey when the vessel is subject to modifications, and inspection of the outside of the vessel's bottom. So at least in 5-year time, you need at least 2 bottom surveys, and the interval shouldn't be more than 36 months. And in addition to HSCC system, there is an alternative extended survey for the periodic and intermediate survey from 6 months up to 18 months. This is acknowledging the realities of the fishing vessel operations, because they cannot sometimes call at the ports, and that's why the survey window is much wider, up to 18 months. You may be recalling the exemptions that I mentioned. So under these 3 different scenarios, the fishing vessels can be exempt from any of the requirements, provided that they operate within these 3 zones. The first one is, in this scenario, country A and country B has a common fishing zone agreement, and regardless of the flag A or flag B, they can operate within this common fishing zone. In scenario 2, there's a bilateral agreement between country C and A, so they are not sharing the same coast, they're not sharing the same fishing zone, but they have an agreement. That's why the flag A can operate within the EEZ of the country C, and they can be exempted from any requirements again. And in the final scenario, this is the most common one, country A has the EEZ, and flag A can operate freely here, and some of the requirements can be exempted for this specific fishing vessel. As I have mentioned, there are some incentives for increasing the acceptance levels, starting with the equivalency provisions for length and gross tonnage, and we have progressive implementation for the chapters 7, 8, and 10 up to 5 years, and chapter 9 up to 10 years. Similar to SOLAS Convention, if there are equipment featuring novel, having features of a novel kind, then they can be exempted from the requirements of chapters 2 through 7. And in this case, an exemption certificate is issued to the vessel. The administration may allow equivalent fittings, materials, again, mirroring the SOLAS Convention, so it is another incentive that can be applied by the implementing member state. Radio communication equipment can be exempt from the requirements, provided that the administration is satisfied that it is providing the same level, at least same level equivalency for the provisions in SOLAS chapter, in Captain Agreement Chapter 9. For the navigation equipment, Chapter 10, administration may exempt any vessel from any requirements if it considers that the nature of the voyage and proximity to the shore allows and the vessel isn't put in danger because of the proximity. So for the Chapter 10's requirement, any provision can be exempted. And as you can see in the agreement, there are so many wordings that is providing flexibility for the implementing member state. For example, alternative arrangements, equivalencies to the satisfaction of the administration. Again, these are some of the tools that are factored in when the agreement was developed for providing the flexibility to the implementing member states, considering the realities of the fishing vessel industry. I think this table summarizes what I have been trying to describe about the technical provisions. As you can see, for the new fishing vessels above 45 meters, all chapters would be applicable. And for the existing ones, for larger size, only these chapters will be applicable. And they can be implemented on a gradual basis. So this for LSA, for example, for 5 years, emergency procedures 5 years, and navigation equipment 5 years, whereas the radio communications you have 10 years to gradually implement the provisions. And in this case, the organization needs to be notified by the implementing member state saying that I will implement Chapter 7 until the 5th year that I ratify the agreement, or it can be even less than 5 years. And for the new fishing vessels on the smaller size, certain chapters are exempted, as I have mentioned. And for the existing vessels, the only requirement is Chapter 8, Emergency Procedures, and Navigation Chapter 10. You may be wondering what other instruments are applicable for fishing vessels. You can see a number of instruments. These instruments have already been inspected by the flag state and port state, but the Captain Agreement will complement the other existing instruments. And this is the overview of the instruments providing the requirements for the vessels and for the personnel with respect to training. So this line is the training requirements, and this line is for the construction and equipment standards, depending on the size of the fishing vessel. And these are the mandatory ones, the others are non-mandatory. And this list is summarizing the available instruments. Again, with respect to the vessels themselves, the mandatory ones are marked with M, CTA, ILO C188, and FAO PSMA. And the others are voluntary guidelines depending on the size of the fishing vessel. And this table provides the summary of the training requirements, again provided by FAO, IMO, and ILO. They work all together. It's a full set of mandatory and recommendatory instruments. The SCCWF is mandatory, and again ILO C188 provides training and qualifications with respect to the fishers, again mandatory, and the others are non-mandatory depending on the size of the fishing vessels. So as you can see, the full size spectrum is covered. IMO has been holding national and regional events in cooperation with FAO, ILO, and other industry stakeholders like WMU. Interagency cooperation is ongoing among the 3 UN agencies through the joint working group. The 5th session was held in Geneva, so we've been talking about the coordinated implementation of all these instruments mandated by the 3 UN agencies together with the industry. One of the recent developments that is helping with the CTA is the adoption of the interim implementation guidelines. These guidelines would help the member states that are planning to ratify or that have recently ratified, and they are maybe making the arrangements for the domestic law. So I would strongly recommend you to take a look at these if you haven't done so yet. And the IMO Secretariat has developed a comprehensive web portal about fishing vessel safety. You can find useful sources for downloading, for watching, and reading. There are certain regional implementation initiatives by Paris MOU, Tokyo MOU, European Union, Indian Ocean Tourism Commission, Indian Ocean MOU, and RFMOs, like this was mentioned by Professor Baumler about fishing vessel IMO number scheme. So as you know, the IMO number is not mandatory for the fishing vessels, but the RFMOs are encouraging the use of the IMO numbers. So what happens after the entry into force? We need to update the Cape Town Agreement because of the 15-year elapse since the adoption of the agreement. For example, the Inmarsat provisions were removed from SOLAS Chapter 4 recently, so we need to do the same adjustment for the CTA. Although we have the implementation interim guidance, we may need to integrate into the bigger picture of the HACC system for the survey certification. We will need more capacity building needs, workshops, seminars for the implementing states. And we need more harmonized approach for the other instruments of FAO and ILO through the joint working group. And I'd like to conclude my presentation with this tangible outcome of the safety regime. So this was taken from the Icelandic Maritime Transport Ministry. So before the safety regulations were improved in 1980s, the annual fatality rate was about 23. But after the introduction, you can see this significant drop down to 0. So in 5 consecutive years, they had 0 fatality rate in 2017 and between 17 and 22. And last few years, again, 2 or even 0 fatality rate. So this is the significant outcome of the introduction of the safety regime in your legislation and also the implementation. And this is providing us with a more attractive industry for young people, both men and women. Thank you so much for your attention.